Microphones open, cameras live. Okay, enjoy.
Thank you. I'd like to call the meeting of May 5th of the Pelham Board of Education to order. Would everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the
to
flag
the flag
of
the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay,
That is the hardest thing to do on a Zoom call.
we've gotten better at it, though, I would say.
We have.
no
We've got a
flags
little
in it.
incrementally better.
We'll have it down pat by the end of the school year.
There we go.
Sue, 2.4, could we please have a reiteration of the executive session motions?
Yes, the board met in executive session to discuss the record of a particular student, the employment history of a particular person, discussions regarding proposed, pending, or current litigation, and collective bargaining pursuant to Article 14 of Civil Service Law.
Thank you. So welcome to tonight's meeting. I don't know about you, but in many ways, feels like we're living in the twilight zone. Like we wake up each day and now it's May. Can't believe it's May. It's normally such a busy time in terms of student achievements, awards, sporting events, and celebrating our teachers and administrators, which I'm going to get to. It's also really hard that our shift towards distance learning and school operations began nearly 8 weeks ago. And based on the governor's announcements just at the end of last week, it's even harder to believe that our school doors won't open again for the rest of the school year. That seemed unfathomable when we left on the 12th of March. So over the course of the past 2 months, and many of you guys, I think, have probably seen the same texts and jokes that have been going around about quarantine, which at least for me has served to ease the worry and uncertainty of this unusual time. And some of the funniest memes that I've seen have touched on parents' woes with homeschooling. Very relatable to me on many levels. One parent wondered how they could get their kid transferred out of their class. That one caught my attention. And another one quipped that if schools were closed too long, parents were going to come up with a vaccine before the scientists did. And while many of the jokes have been extremely relatable to me and have given me a much needed laugh on my hardest days in my homeschool experience, they've also reminded me of the importance of our schools and of our teachers. And while I'm always appreciative of the hard work of educators, this distance learning experience has given me a greater respect for our teachers' abilities to tend to the needs of our students' varied strengths, circumstances, and interests, and for their patience to meet our students wherever they are on any given day, and to inspire our students to be more than they see in themselves. And I've often heard, like on greeting cards and things like that, that a teacher takes a hand, opens a mind, and touches a heart. And so on behalf of the board, in honor of National Teacher Appreciation Day, which happens, the actual day happens to be today, and this is Teacher Appreciation Week, I wanted to thank all of our teachers for the ways they've continued to work to open our students' minds and to touch their hearts, even when physically, this physical distance makes it impossible to take them physically by the hand. And on a related note, not to be forgotten, this past Friday was National School Principals Day. And if it weren't for the measured and unified leadership of our building principals during these challenging times, our teachers wouldn't have the support they felt they needed to shift to this new way of delivering education to our students. So on behalf of the board, I also wanted to thank our building administrators for all of their hard work and their leadership all year, and especially during this time. In ending, I'll mention on another logistical note that we will conduct our public comment in the same fashion as we have at our past meetings. If you'd like to submit public comment, please email me at jddomenico@pelhamschools.org by 9:30 p.m. and I can read your statement during the public comment portion of our meeting. And as always, please be sure to include your name and Pelham Street address, and to try and make your comments brief, as I'll be reading them into the record. So this brings us to section 3, which is approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion? I'll take a consent of 3.1 and 3.2.
So moved.
Thanks, Sue.
Second.
Thank you, Eileen. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Okay, section 4 is administrative and committee reports. Dr. Champ, can we have your superintendent's report?
Sure. And good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to see, looks like our entire administrative team turned out tonight. So thank you so much to them after putting in incredibly long days. They're here tonight, and we're here for an exciting appointment tonight to have another member joining the administrative team, which I'll get to in a moment. I would start by echoing Jessica's sentiments about teacher appreciation. Really, this is like, as I know the word unprecedented is becoming overused, but it still is appropriate to have an amazing group of teachers who have stepped up in such incredibly unprecedented times. Just makes us so proud. So we continue to express our thanks and appreciation to our teachers throughout this week. And as you said, to our principals and our entire administrative team for the work they're doing. I feel sad because I don't have the usual brag sheet about the high school because we don't have all the events that we normally do. You know, it's just another symptom of the situation we're all living in, but I do appreciate all the work that's going in to still provide them with extra activities. We've had lots of science, especially special events, really exciting. I know we've done virtual forensics debates. We've done all kinds of things, but we're saddened that we will not be getting together to do those things physically this year. But we're still hoping that we can provide lots of engaging opportunities for our students between now and the end of the year as we all work to kind of accept the fact that this is the schooling that we're going to be in for these last 2 months. Most of all the normal updates I have already gone out in my nightly emails, thanks to Alex Wolf and all of his hard work. So I don't have much else. So I'm going to get right to the big event of the night. And that is, we're very excited tonight. It's, you know, always bittersweet because the reason for this excitement is the bitter departure of yet another principal who will be retiring at the end of this year. So we just once again recognize Susan Gilbert for all of her many years of service to the district and all the amazing things that she's done at Siwanoy. And, you know, with that, we are very pleased tonight to introduce Fareed Johnson, who I will be recommending to the board later in this evening tonight to be appointed as the new principal for Siwanoy School starting in July. So Fareed is with us tonight. I'm going to ask him to say just a few words in just a minute. But before he does, I want to just, you know, say a few words about him. Fareed will be coming to us from the North Rockland Central School District. He's currently the principal of Stony Point Elementary School. And before that, he was assistant principal in the Hastings-on-Hudson School District. So he's a Westchester guy. He knows Westchester very well. We're bringing him home to Westchester from North Rockland. And he, throughout the process, has stood head and shoulders above other candidates with each of our committees. Just charismatic, energetic, passionate, and his love of children is evident in everything that he does. Fareed has been a great leader in literacy in his current district and his work prior to that. He has been a special education teacher, so he definitely brings a unique lens at looking at all the different ways that our students, the assets that they bring with them to the table and their differences. And he eagerly looks to adapt to those and find ways for all students to achieve at high levels. He's excited to become part of our community, to really start to learn the traditions that make Siwanoy so special, learn the community, get to know the parents, and most importantly, get to know the students. And we are looking forward to seeing some of his great costumes that I've heard so much about. I think some of them have made some of even social media rounds. He's not afraid to don the superhero costumes to really get students excited about school. So without much further ado, I'm not going to reread his whole bio. We did send that out to the community this morning, and I do encourage folks to take a read of that and get to know him. But without any further ado, I'm going to introduce him so everyone at home can see him on the camera and have a face and a name and a voice to put together. As Fareed, we welcome you to the Pelham Schools and to Siwanoy School, and we want to give you a chance just to say hello to everybody tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Champ. Actually, my wife made me type something up,
Go
so
for
I
it.
went and started over my words. I have a couple of things written out. I'm beyond excited to be joining the Pelham educational team and community. They say hard work pays off, and this moment right here is a perfect example of that. This is somewhat of a dream come true, as you said. Like, I'm a Westchester kid, born and raised, and it's great to be back in such a wonderful district to lead a school. Um, I would like to first thank Dr. Champ and her cabinet, Ms. Chung, Mr. Garcia, and Mr. Ricky, for seeing something in me when we met. Throughout the interview process, I was impressed with the type of questions being asked. They were not just procedural questions, but questions about my character and what I deem important as an educator, and even more importantly, as a good human being. I would like to thank the president and vice president of the Board of Education, Ms. DiDomenico, Ms. Childs, and the rest of the Board of Education members for helping to make this such a great district that I really do want to be a part of. From the outside, you hear a lot about the value of this community, the value that they put on building relationships, fostering and nurturing, but yet rigorous and just overall greatness. Like, there's a lot of value on greatness in Pelham, which is another reason why I just really want to be a part of that, because they say to be great, you have to be around great people, and I'm really ready to just learn from the best of them. Lastly, I need to thank my family, my wife Rachel, and my three girls, Aubrey, Skylar, and Esme. My wife is a teacher, and she helps me to remember where I came from, which is the classroom. I run things by her all the time because the last thing I want to do would be the topic of a bad faculty room conversation. Girls help to keep me focused, and you know, I want to run a school that's worthy of them being a part of. So I don't do anything without them in my mind first. Thank you to the wonderful administration team that I'm coming into. You guys have welcomed me with open arms, and I am truly, truly grateful to be a part of such a wonderful team. I really do love kids. I don't know how much more I can say that, but I hope soon I get into a school and just show you how much I love kids. I'm looking forward to getting started. So thank you again, everyone.
Thank you so much, Fareed. And I guess we'll clap and welcome aboard.
Congratulations.
Really
Thank
excited
you.
to have you coming on board. I don't know if anyone wanted to say anything else quick. Can't remember if we did that last week or not.
I just was so excited for the energy that you're going to bring to this district, Freed. I can't wait to see the costumes. You did mention you know how to walk on your hands, so hold you to that. I want to see a video of that.
I have a lot of things. It's cool because I get to do them all over again, like I'm doing them for the first time. So it's gonna be fun.
I love it, and just so excited about the addition that you're going to make to our administrative team and to our district. So welcome.
Great. So Fareed, if you'll hang out for a little while, we're actually formally appointing you much later in the meeting.
Okay.
But I'll give you a little flavor of what's going on here in the district as we proceed through our reports. But thanks so much for being here tonight, and we look forward to you joining the team. And just so everyone knows, we'll certainly be working on some ways to introduce Fareed to the broader community as well over the course of the next weeks and months. It's more challenging doing it virtually, but we're still committed to doing that so that we can get him connected to parents, to staff, to students, so that he's ready to dive in July 1 to be part of our community. So thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
And that ends my report for this evening. I will talk a little bit later. I'm going to actually wait till we're to Dr. Garcia's report to talk, just to share some anticipated tweaks and changes that we're looking at for the special schedule at the elementary. But I'm going to wait till we get to the academic part of tonight's meeting for that.
Great. Thank you so much. And welcome, Fareed. 4.2 is Board of Education Committee reports. Did we have any in the last couple weeks?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah, Jess, I actually had one
Anything to report?
this morning.
Oh, right.
Great. Thank you.
All right. The Audit Committee met this morning with representatives from both our internal auditors, namely Don Hoffman from Cullen and Danowski and Chris Kopp from our external auditors, O'Connor Davies. I'll make this brief, but the points that Don brought up, he actually went over the results from our agreed upon procedures review. And in that review, what they do is they'll pick a couple of areas within the school that they haven't seen in a number of years. So the two areas that they selected were our purchasing and our staff attendance. And the findings for both of them were pretty good. There were no major major find either one of the two. Obviously, the staff attendance one is that we only have one trick that does some small of substance. According to the report. So I was happy to see that.
Vinny, you're going in and
agreed
out.
upon procedures, what will that is a cry auditors. Happens is that okay? Sorry, that's my Wi-Fi then. The corrective action plan that gets prepared is then response. Jim then brings it, and that corrective action plan is. The second presentation that we had this morning was Chris Koff from our external auditors, Connor Davies, and the objective of that was to do a pre-audit meeting, which requires some diligence testing at the beginning of June. And based upon that, they then come back again in July to do their full fiscal year end review. He then presents, that is then presented to us in September, and we go from there. So it was interesting in some of the things that we discussed, especially with the COVID right now, because obviously we're not going to be able to have in-person meetings. But a lot of it will be done with a secure portal that will be set up, and documents will be transmitted over to our auditors there. And that was pretty much it.
Great.
Hello.
Thank you, Vinny. Thank you very much.
Sorry for the Wi-Fi.
That's okay. All right, Jessica, I think we're back to you. Were there...
Oh, I was talking with my mute on, all these technical difficulties. My question, I had said, does anybody have any questions or comments about that? Thanks, Benny, for that update. So the next is 4.3 Assistant Superintendent's Update on Authentic Learning. Dr. Garcia.
Sure. I'm sorry. I have some technical difficulties with my son going on Alexa for whatever reason, so I apologize for that.
This is how the Saturday Night Live skits about all this.
Yeah. He has his earphones on too. But my kids are communicating with each other, like one upstairs, one downstairs through Alexa, and I need them to, I wonder if they'll stop. I guess so. So anyway, this is life, right? This is life in distance learning. This is pretty much the example of what everyone's dealing with. So that's kind of like our part of our pretty much teaching and learning in an authentic home environment, which is, as you can tell, very stressful. So as you know, we did some, we sent out surveys to the community, teachers and parents, and even students at secondary level. So when we received them, we started dealing with it. We started, studying them and trying to understand, what type of things we should modify and change. And, some things at the elementary level, I know that Dr. Champ has shared with her, with the community in her recent letter. But the structures, we were looking at, how they're doing, and for the most part, they're providing supports and also a lot of social emotional experiences for kids. So those morning and afternoon meetings provide, teachers and students with that consistent time, those consistent periods to learn with each other, and we think that those are areas which we want to continue. It also allows time for teachers to collaborate in teams for professional learning. Curriculum development, which is very important, and also student supports. One thing that we've been doing consistently, but really on purpose, was to develop curriculum as a shared responsibility among teachers and also administrators across all the elementary schools. So this provides a more consistent program established by the school district, especially with the Teachers College Readers Writers Workshop approach, and also Math in Focus. And with some, exciting news is that Math in Focus recently introduced a new model which is really, I think, provides manipulatives online, which are easier for teachers to use and for students to use. And thanks to Beth Finkelstein and Dr. Callahan, we're going to start piloting that work actually in the next few weeks. So we're excited about that. The morning meetings, after meetings, they really do provide children with an essential social emotional learning support network in this time of crisis. But given the time away from the classroom, and that really continues to expand, and as you know, with Governor Cuomo saying that school buildings will not be open the rest of the school year, we're looking to really evolve to balance that time with academic growth as well. So teachers will be integrating more academic learning experiences during the morning meeting time to better guide the learning plan for the day for the kids. Another key aspect of the elementary level is the use of teacher feedback for children. And that's another area which will be really deemed as essential moving forward with distance learning. New curriculum experiences will be developed with a feedback mindset, and also professional learning will continue to assist teachers on this as well. The third item we're really looking at is implementing ways to flexibly group children during the afternoon sessions, make them mandatory for students to attend. It's important for them to be part of it, and really to expand that feedback loop and provide some more individual academic guidance when needed. So we do understand that that's an area of really areas we thought that we wanted to expand on, but the surveys also really provide that information to us more explicitly. The feedback that we hope to provide more to students is really going to foster a more meaningful review of learning growth over the past few months, especially at the end of the school year. And that's some of the administrative team and the teachers are going to be looking at. It's like, well, the school year is going to end in June, but at the elementary level, traditional report cards really may not make as much sense. So we're in discussions determining what that could look like. But as long as teachers are starting to provide that feedback back to kids in terms of what they're developing and what they're doing at home, that will make it a little bit more easier for them to really, I think, provide parents a little bit more of a comprehensive statement on student growth over this strange academic year that we've had. At the secondary level, as you know, many key pieces really deal with assessments, with the way that students should be finalizing their grade for the year, and that is what the past week or so, and we think we've landed on something which we feel is fair to the students. We couldn't really identify what that could look like until the governor really told us, hey, the academic year is probably coming to a close. And with that statement last Friday, we really kind of spent a lot of time shoring up what this new practice could look like in this year of crisis to make sure that we kind of hold students still harmless. And that's sort of been our mantra in terms of that academic progress and how we measure that. So we did invite Janine Clark and also Lynn Sabia to join us to kind of be a little bit more, I think, detailed and give us some more background in terms of how we landed here and what it kind of looks like. So I'd like to kind of first share, I think, with Janine or Lynn, whoever would like to speak first, just the thought process behind the approach. It ties back to the third quarter approach, and then how are we going to end the school year?
Sure.
So, Janine,
I'll start, and Janine will pick up where I left off. So, the first thing is we want to make sure our mantra was like, do no harm to the children. Children are in different positions right now. So over the past week, we've had numerous meetings determine how to assign grades for the third and fourth quarter and accurately reflect students' performance and mastery of content. And our students are in different places. We've had some students that have lost family members due to COVID-19. We've had students that parents have lost jobs. We've had students who are doing very, very well and want more work. We have students that can't keep up with work. So we have a gamut of situations happening with families. So our biggest thing was do no harm to the students. So we wanted to come up, and we all did research on what best practices were and what other districts were doing. And nothing is perfect, but we feel like we really arrived on something that is good. And I've been in many county principals meetings, and a lot of the schools haven't put the time and thought into what we're doing, and have actually commented that they feel like we have a very good practice. So for the third marking period, children would be able to get a pass-fail, and that would not be averaged in. And it took a little bit of time to get the process up and going. We were really lucky. We got all our sixth graders Chromebooks before we finished school. We worked on getting hotspots. We wanted to make sure that everybody had access to what they needed. And it took a little time for some families to be able to get that. Some families were reaching out, and we had more families that needed hotspots. So John Sabalas was working real hard with Jim Rickey to make sure that every student and every family could have the same access to education. And then along with that, the social and emotional component was our biggest concern. Still is, to be honest. And so, we wanted to make sure that we weren't leaving children behind, and make sure that everybody could move forward with this. So we've taken a slow, deliberate approach. And then when we found out we needed to be closed for the rest of the school year, we all kind of thought it in our mind, but when we heard it, it just kind of hit you in the gut there. So then what we wanted to do was go back and really do an overhaul of the whole grading process, with the same concept, do no harm. I'll speak for the middle school and some of the high school, and Janine will speak to that too. Our counselors are working, and our support staff are working very hard to make sure every child is connected, to make sure that we see them on the screen. We hear from them that they have access to turn in assignments, that they have access to our social workers, our guidance counselors, to make sure that their social and emotional needs are met. So we're working really hard with that. So in the fourth quarter, we expanded the third marking period pass-fail to go until June, so that parents can see the fourth marking period. They'll have the option for a pass-fail as well. But they'll be able to evaluate what the third marking period and the fourth marking period look like. So we want to find a way to hold students accountable so that their work means something, and so that we keep them hooked in, but at the same time, given some leeway so that students that are struggling more have more time to make stuff up. So we've allowed students to make stuff up from before we closed for the third marking period. We're continuing. Our teachers have been very flexible, and communicating with families and reaching out, so that we want to make sure that every child can put forward their best effort. And that looks different for different students. So the administrative team worked really hard on coming up with criteria that we think is going to be able to hit the mark for all our different levels of students. And so Janine will explain a little bit more about that, but the fourth marking period, you can get a pass-fail as well, but right now grades will be put into the portal. And I think that's important because we want children to see that their grades mean something, yet they're flexible. If parents or students reach out and say they're having any kind of difficulty, the teachers are flexible, they meet with them. Fridays, one-on-one, we have so many team meetings and so many one-on-one meetings and small group meetings with students and parents, to make sure that we're meeting their needs. And then we had to come up with criteria. We had to come up with numeric assignments for what things will be worth. We decided no final exams. And I think it's something that will really be able to help benefit all our children. So Janine, if you want to go a little more into detail of what that looks like.
So it's sort of started off a little bit. The week before that is when the New York State decided that we were no longer offering Regents exams. So once we have that as a little background, it sort of changed everything, because then we eventually decided at that point, if there was not a Regents exam, then we're not going to have final exams at the same time. So the weighting of our courses changed somewhat because we have figured out to include exams for many of our courses. Like some courses have a midterm, some have a final exam. So we had to come up with different weightings for courses that have midterm versus those that have final exams. We had to come up with different weightings for courses that had their semester courses versus full year courses. We also looked to, since we were throwing out the option of third marking period as a pass-fail, and if it was a semester course, we couldn't have two pass-fails for a semester course. So we had to individualize those particular courses. So there has to be at least one grade, either third quarter or fourth quarter. And that grade will be weighted as basically 100% if you opt for a pass fail for third quarter, we'll say, and you have a grade for fourth quarter. The other piece was we asked parents to give us a decision at the end of third quarter if they wanted their child to receive a pass or fail. Well, since we offered it now in fourth quarter, we said, we'll send you a form home, and then the parents can revisit the grades for all of the students. So we felt this way they have all the facts and they can make the best determination based on the grades, because at that point in June, the parents will know what all the grades are. Everything will be up in the portal. And then if the parents choose to have the pass fail option, then we can figure out the weighting of all this. So as Miss Sabia was saying, we really were trying to meet the needs of a variety of circumstances, a variety of learners to the best of our ability. We've sent something home at the end of, I think last week. There weren't too many questions from parents because we've outlined and gave scenarios as to what it would look like with different grades for different weighting for a variety of courses. So if the Board of Ed has any kind of questions, Lynn and I are here to answer them. One thing I forgot to mention that we didn't put down was parents were asking what will actually appear on a transcript, and a grade, one final grade will appear on the transcript for each course. We don't put each quarter's grades on a transcript, just the final grade. So the transcript will not have a pass-fail, it will have a numerical grade. So that's the most important aspect that we failed to put in that communication last week. So this gives us an opportunity to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Also, Tom has joined us, so if you have questions, he was instrumental in helping figure out all the percentages and what's the best way to move forward and what will work. So, it was a team effort from the whole administrative cabinet, everybody's input, looking at what other schools are doing, and we think what we came up with really can work well for the students.
I have a question for Janine, maybe. For the high schoolers who are concerned about, how this gets presented to colleges during applications, is there a notification that this is what we did, or how does that happen?
Well, there'll be a grade on the student's transcript, but there'll be something in the profile when we send out the transcript. We include a profile. The sample of our profile now is on our website. So there'll be a description as to what are the options we gave the students as part of the profile for next year.
And Lynn, am I correct in that middle school students typically and will still get a letter grade as opposed to a numerical end of course grade?
Yes, with the exception of earth science and algebra.
Right, because those get high school credit, so those will get the numerical grade like the high school.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the time you put into this. I know there was a lot of concern back with the uncertainty in March about the third quarter, and that brought up concerns that I try and put aside when you start thinking about too many implications of all of this, about what the fourth quarter might hold if we didn't go back to school. And this just seems like a very fair and equitable way to meet the needs of all of our students and to accommodate all of them where they are. I have, followed along with all the standardized testing changes, and that's a moving target from a college admissions perspective. It seems that grades will have more of an impact in the process, the essay, other parts of the application, if we don't have standardized test scores. So I think giving the students the option of earning actual grades if they feel like they've been able to keep up and put in the hard work will be helpful to some students, and at the same time, the pass-fail option in certain classes could be really useful to others. So thank you for open-mindedness on all this.
You're welcome.
I just want to say, I also want to thank, obviously, the administrators, but, just throughout this whole process, we talked about how you had Principal Appreciation Day and Teacher Appreciation Day within a week of each other. But it has been very hard, obviously, because, everyone is used to working to ensure every child has, the best experience that we have to offer, that we can, really try to make sure that their needs are set, and that it is very disappointing when we hear people are unsatisfied, to be honest with you. And, when it's a normal situation and we're in school and we can have conversations and we see the learning going on, and kids are getting the help, and it's a whole different scenario. This is a whole different learning experience for us. And, we're seeing things that work and things that don't work. And I think we'll continue to see that over time. And, everything that we're doing now kind of also builds our repertoire for if we ever have to do this again, right? Like we're not going to talk about the fall, but, contingency plans. What's next? What should it look like? Even if there's summer programs, what could that look like? And what we're doing now is kind of help shape that and inform what we do. But also, so again, the administrators, they've done a wonderful job just trying to keep up every day with the needs of teachers and students, but also the teachers. The teachers they want to do their best, and they don't ever want to be compromised. And sometimes we feel that maybe certain structures compromise them. Sometimes it helps them, sometimes it doesn't. So we're kind of all learning together. And one thing too, for the community, we're always curious about what other districts do. And, as regional school districts, we always reach out, and we kind of share all our efforts and our plans. And it is fascinating to look at other school districts and see what they're capable of and what we're doing. And we learn from each other. So, I mean, that's always been, I think, a one time in this crisis is really districts are pulling together to try to understand some best practices, and we kind of share. So just want to thank again the teachers and administrators for kind of help shaping this over this evolving period, which will continue to evolve over time as well. And again, of course, we thank students and parents for their patience and understanding in this really unprecedented time. So I know Cheryl wants to talk more about another piece of this is
Thank you.
scheduling and
Can I just on
next
that,
year.
back to what you were saying, Steve,
Yeah.
first before we move on, can I just confirm that I read correctly? Based on the results of the surveys, we are not reducing any offerings that we had in place before. If anything, that seemed to be a little bit of an inference that some parents made when the note went out. I just want to confirm that we have, if anything, we're adding more feedback at the elementary level. A required 2:30 check-in.
Yes.
And at the secondary level, the class schedule hasn't changed. So.
No, it hasn't changed. At the secondary level, it's still the same amount of time. But at the elementary level, no. I mean, it is the same amount of time, right? We want more people. We want the kids to really participate in the afternoon sessions. Teachers are going to be looking at how, one feedback from parents, we're saying, well, the groups are so big, can we make them smaller at times? The afternoon, we're hoping to use part of that time as teachers and their flexibility to not only group the kids together, but then also spend time with smaller groups of kids during that afternoon period as well, and split that time up more creatively. I think that's kind of one of our challenges as well, but it's not like the time that is dedicated to the families or to kids has gone down at all. And you know what? And this is hard because the one thing that when we look at other school districts, the concept of synchronous learning versus asynchronous learning, right? So we want to see how we can embed some more asynchronous videos, and teachers are working on that, and they're working with their principals and different groups of teachers are working together in terms of developing the curriculum. But we also want the classroom teacher to create some videos and do that. But the amount of synchronous learning time hasn't changed at all. In fact, it probably should increase if kids haven't been involved with the afternoon sessions in the past few weeks. But from what I've seen in other school districts, I still think we have a pretty robust plan and a pretty robust experience. And I'd love to know some other school districts who may be spending more synchronous learning time with their schools and their kids, because I haven't seen it, secondary or elementary. It's not, I'm telling you, it doesn't replicate the school day when the kids are together. It doesn't at all. And I think that it could modify or change over time. Thinking about next year, thinking about over the summer. If it's a summer program that we have for students, it probably won't look the same. But I think that I'm proud of the teachers. Uh, but also I think the structures are pretty sound. But no loss of time there. I'm hoping that there's actually more time that's devoted to kids overall as well.
Well, and the asynchronous learning gives us the opportunity to stick by our priorities of authentic learning. I mean, that is something that is very available to us
Yeah.
with students at home. There's a lot of new kind of
There's a lot.
opportunities, and sitting in front of a screen with your teacher talking to you sort of takes all those opportunities away. So
Yeah.
it's something to think about as we
Yeah, that's
think
like
about the longevity of this,
the blended approach,
Yeah.
right? And
Steve,
yeah,
for the purpose of people who may not understand these terms, could you please explain synchronous versus asynchronous learning?
Synchronous is right now happening. I'm live with you. I'm live with anyone who's listening. That's synchronous. That's happening live, same time. All right. Asynchronous is if this is being recorded, you can see this tomorrow morning at your own leisure, but there's no interactivity. So asynchronous, you're just kind of watching it. Teacher may be showing it, maybe demonstrating different skills, but that is not live, quote unquote. So that's the difference between the two terms. And by the way, as you can see, John, is that, if you can only think about a teacher who's doing synchronous learning with, right now we have 23 people who are watching this live in our whole group. That's what a classroom teacher is kind of working with. Let's say morning meeting, 23 kids, got to mute all those kids. And, sometimes it could be kind of, crazy. I think at this point, kids are used to it. The teachers getting used to it, because I just want to go back to one thing, which I didn't mention, is that, 30 days ago, Google Meet didn't exist in our district, right? We didn't really know what that meant. Google Classroom did not exist at the elementary level at all. That was all, distance learning. What was that? That was something if you took a world language with another school district in Wisconsin. So it has changed a lot. And John Sabalos, again, I just always want to give a shout out to him. He is our sole survivor of professional learning with new technologies, and he's the one who's really working with our teachers to provide those new experiences on how to provide feedbacks to kids using Google Docs or using the Google Classroom or other applications. And he's been doing that. He's been really doing a great job with that.
and keeping up with all of the issues that have come up. I've had a lot of parents tell me that when they've had technology issues or device issues, that John and his team have been on it like white on rice. So
Yeah, yes. But one thing is that again, I said this before. Every time we get an email from a parent or whether it's positive or or needs improvement areas, it's heartfelt. It hits us. We think about it, right? Because we never really want to disappoint, but sometimes it is definitely a challenge because we have a lot of demands and there are a lot of needs, and it's hard to sort of differentiate it at times in this virtual world. But we're listening.
sorry, Cheryl, didn't mean to derail.
No, that's okay. No,
wanted to
quite all
come-
right. I think that was an important conversation. I think Steve really highlighted a lot of important things for people to understand about our program. We've taken certain approaches for very intentional reasons, and although they may have taken a little longer to move us, to where we wanted to be, they paid off. And I think about something like the collaborative grade level planning. A lot of the struggles we hear from colleagues are because people are just working in isolation on their own, and some parents and students are having amazing experiences, and some are having terrible experiences because they're getting night and day experiences with what's being delivered from the district, because it wasn't a systemic approach. And that's where I give Steve and the administrative team a tremendous amount of credit for seeing that on the front end, that this is an all for one for all effort, so that we can stay consistent, and most importantly, to provide our students with that guaranteed and consistent learning experience, so that we do our best to keep them all on the same page, so that when we come back in the fall, we have a consistent sense of what learning experiences they had. And I do continue to reiterate what Steve said as well. We do more of that synchronous learning, live time learning, than almost any other public district, than I think any other public school district in our area that we've encountered. Many are moving to 2 live sessions a week, and we're at least 2 live sessions a day. So not that there isn't room for improvement, but I think people really don't understand that we've been ahead of the curve in that regard. And I think continue to tweak and make better and better use of that time so that we can make sure students are moving forward. So tremendous amount of work and effort and coordination and collaboration going into that. So I want to take us to a place that was kind of back to normal, back to before COVID, back to when we were in school and thinking, how do we use our in brick and mortar live time setting? As the board probably remembers, we had part of our strategic plan this year was to work with a scheduling consultant to look at our schedules and see what we felt was necessary and best, and how we could improve our use of time to support our learning goals for our students, and also to gain more efficiency with our use of staff, and to increase supports through better efficiency, better scheduling, and those type of things. So we've been working with Michael Reddig. And before COVID hit, we had some really productive sessions with him and brainstorming of some small tweaks to the elementary special schedule that we think will give us some huge gains. So we were able to reconnect with him and thinking about the fall. And I know, we all still have to get to the point of thinking about what social distancing is going to mean for the opening of schools. So for the moment, set that aside. Go back to the ideal world of trying to build the elementary program that we want for our students. And so what we talked about, and the reason we raise it now is because it's important for us to at least be thinking and planning this way, because there are scheduling and staffing implications of that, which of course then relate to budgeting and all the planning that we're doing now for the academic programs. So in working with him, we've got a couple tweaks that we're proposing for the fall that we think are going to help us to just make better use of our staff. It's going to allow us to reduce the amount of shared staff across buildings. And as we've spoken in the past, sharing of staff not only wastes teacher time, because now we have to give them time to travel, so they're not in classes with students, but also it ties up, it adds constraints to scheduling of the building. So if a teacher's only available in the morning in one school, then they have to be in another school in the afternoon. And that tends to start tying things up. The more you share, the more constraints you have on your schedule, the more difficulties present. So we were looking for better use of staffing, reduction of shared staff. We were also struggling, and the board has heard us talk a lot about this, with really wanting to increase opportunities for professional learning, in particular grade level planning, common grade level planning at our elementary level, where we can plan, we can collaborate, we can do training, professional development, department meetings, trying to capture some time where we could have those shared grade level team meetings. And we also wanted to look at how could we then tweak just the offerings that we're giving to students. And I think this COVID, to bring COVID back in for a few minutes, has shown us that we really have some vulnerabilities at the elementary level with regards to technology. Part of that is we have a very small technology staff. We don't have the instructional technology staff that we wish we had. And that is a piece of, where we were, and then a piece of helping to get us to where we needed to be and why it was such a struggle. So in talking through this with Michael Reddig, we realized some opportunities. So what we're looking to do in the fall that's going to hopefully make better use of all of this, some small tweaks. One is, and you remember, I believe it was on last month's board agenda, we had resignation of Anne Louise Wright, one of our music teachers. She's moving out to the Midwest. She and her husband are relocating. So what we're hoping to do with that position, because of the better utilization of our music teachers you have 2 teachers that can provide the general music instruction for all grade levels across all 4 buildings with these tweaks to the schedule. We're looking to repurpose that position and hire in its place an instructional technology teacher. So that would be somebody who would be tasked specifically, somebody that would probably be across all 4 schools, similar to the way that our librarian is. And I've got the wrong last name in the back of my head. And Sullivan, no, yes, Ann Sullivan. Our librarian is across all 4 elementary schools. So we're hoping to hire a instructional technology teacher to take a similar approach, to be across all 4 schools. that'll give us somebody whose specific focus is now then working on digital literacy, digital citizenship, and improving our student use with the tools of technology to support their learning and their instruction, the teacher's instructional objectives, and of course then to be a partner with our teacher to really start to capitalize now on the new technology skills that we've learned in this time. And we're hoping to provide a better foundation for our students in the technology realm. That'll also help to support our makerspace initiatives and tinkering and STEM challenges and all those other things that we've been working on. It'll be a key person as a collaborator there. Also, we're looking to restructure how we're scheduling our FLES classes. As everyone knows, we now have FLES in grades 2 through 5. Currently, the teachers meet with the students 30 minutes every other day. And that's actually kind of what we call kind of an overlay. It's not an actual scheduled specials class. So what it is it just kind of gets added on top of the schedule, and it might fall during the ELA block or during a math block or during another special. So students then are pulled out of whatever they normally would have been doing for their FLES lesson, which of course everyone loves. It's been an amazing implementation. It's a program we continue to be committed to. We found a way where we can instead now for next year schedule that in as a regular special. So instead of 30 minutes every other day, it would be 2 cycle days a week for 45 minutes. And it would be a special just like art, music, library, and physical education. So it'll be a designated period. It won't be taking away from other classes. And the teachers will be able to still have the same amount of instructional contact time over the course of those 6 cycle days. So with those pieces added, we're also, due to just some reallocation of staffing that is partially due to a number of retirements, we are going to be able to, in the coming year, have a dedicated intervention teacher at Colonial and a dedicated one at Siwanoy. Currently this year, we share 2 people, so they're half and half. And of course, we coordinate their schedules. But we found at Prospect Hill and Hutchinson, where we're able to have full-time dedicated people, that opens up a world of new flexibility when it comes to providing tiered supports for students. Because when you have that teacher there all the time, better collaboration with classroom teachers, more availability for the teachers, you're not losing travel time. And teachers are right there to meet the need. It's much more flexible. So we're excited about that piece as well. And one more piece to add to this, and some people are going to be very happy, some students and some parents very happy, others may not be, but it's a move that we're going to make again to try to make better use of staff and to really preserve the integrity of the learning time for students. As we're planning to move chorus, 4th and 5th grade chorus, to before school, similar to orchestra and band. So that would make it an optional program. And I know that I've had many 5th grade make a change project proposals to me from 5th grade students that wanted to see chorus become optional, and many parents who also had some of those same sentiments. But we're going to be looking to move through that in the morning alongside band, orchestra, and chorus. And we're going to work to arrange it so that if a student, like I was when I was in elementary school, was really interested in music, they could be in band, it could be in orchestra and chorus. We'll stagger those out so that we will try to avoid conflicts so students can participate actively in all 3 of those. So kind of the net change of that really is we're getting an add of an instructional technology teacher. All students will have technology, that instructional technology, K through 5 at all 4 buildings. All will continue to have library with our district librarian. All students will continue to have phys ed every other day. They will have music and art once every 6 days. FLES will have, our 2nd through 5th graders will have FLES 2 out of 6 cycle days. And the nice part of this is currently we don't offer library for our youngest learners. I believe it's K and 1 do not get library, maybe even be 2. I can't remember all the details. We'll now be able to offer library K5 at all schools. So we're really seeing this as an improvement in that being able to offer all students more opportunities. And again, the gains that we're going to get in efficiency and use of staff is going to contribute to that, especially with regards to providing flexibility to access supports. So it was a lot of detail. See if there's any questions or clarifications needed on that. I will add one important part that you're probably thinking. This is all using our current staffing and actually may result in a slight decrease, maybe a slight decrease in one particular area that may be reallocated somewhere else. But it's all within our current staffing.
How does this impact, this is where my mind goes to like a middle school or high school scheduled periods, but does this impact one way or another the amount of math time or?
Nope. It
Yeah,
preserves the
like-
math time, and it actually eliminates a lot of the disruption, the potential disruption. Where FLES was the big, as we looked into it deeply, we'd argued a lot about music lessons, and it turned out that FLES was actually the program that actually interfered more with something like math and ELA instruction. So this should reduce the pullouts from those core academic classes. Therefore, it should result in more time on more uninterrupted time in the core subjects.
And what about the impact of the students who get pulled out for special services? Are there were they able to look at that and make sure they weren't missing?
Yep. So we still, in addition to this shift we made this year that we're planning to continue for next year, is we built in what we call IE blocks. It's intervention and enrichment blocks. And that's where we do a lot of exactly what you're talking about, whether it's academic intervention for students who scored low on state assessments, which of course we don't have this year, but we're still going to offer support services for students who are at risk of not meeting state standards. So we'll be using those periods. Music lessons will also make use of that period of time. Those are some of we're going to use that time even for special education services. Some of the resource room services happen during those times. So again, we're trying to really streamline, minimize the interruption to the core academics, yet still provide all those opportunities for students who want and or need the additional enrichment and support. And one other piece that I didn't mention in here, it's a little technical. I don't want to get too in the weeds, but the place that it's going to enable us to open up more teacher time is library and technology are going to actually be kind of that overlay strategy. Similar to how we did FLES, but without the same level of interruption, because it will provide an opportunity for teachers. The classroom teacher will be relieved of that class so that the library teacher or the technology teacher will take over and run their specials class, and we'll arrange those in a way that is minimally disruptive as well. But what that does is that then allows us to capture back some common planning time, because all teachers at the grade level will be planned to have their planning at the same time. So it gives us a chance to give them all another period off. We'll be able to capture that time with all of them together. And as I said, hold whatever kinds of meetings, collaborative plannings, trainings, whatever we need to do to support their professional work. It'll give us a lot more time to do that.
Great. Does anybody else have questions? Or?
Okay. Steve, or any of the principals, did I leave any key pieces of that out?
I don't think so. It's just working with Dr. Reddick was fascinating, and he works all around the world with different school schedules. So he's the right person to help us along with this. So, and then we'll be, part of the strategic plan is looking at the use of time and space, and we'll hopefully next year, if we're more together, we can help have a conversation about the secondary schedule. But also, even if we open up in the fall, he could also help us see what that could look like if we have to do different types of schedules because of COVID-19.
I worked with Mike Reddick for the past 3 years. The man's an absolute genius when it comes to putting pieces together. So that's awesome.
Yeah. He's going to be a great resource for us as we move forward. So each of our building principals are going to be working with him at the elementary level to get down, kind of the roll up the sleeves and really nail down their master schedules for the fall. They'll be working with him later this month and into June to try to draft out those schedules so that we have a district-wide approach to it, to enable that shared staffing in the most effective and efficient way, but also to really to provide a consistency of program that we can guarantee all of our students access to these great programs that we want for them.
Great.
Great.
Thank you. Big
You're welcome.
accomplishment. I know this is something we've been talking about for a while, so
Yes.
exciting. Okay, so we have moved on to 4.4, Superintendent's Update on the Whole Child. Julia.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I want to start out by sharing that May is Mental Health Awareness Month. It is vital that we really recognize the importance of mental health, especially at this time. I hope that everyone is taking the time to focus on their own wellness and mental health on a regular basis. In the special education realm, now that the school closure has been extended until end of the school year, we're making adjustments to what we need to do, what needs to occur by end of the school year, and to meet the needs of individual children and their families. So our case managers are working very closely with the families to let them know, what changes need to occur. But if any of the parents have any concerns or questions, please reach out to me or reach out to our elementary supervisor, Dr. Ribeiro, or our secondary supervisor, Mr. Lau. We're all here to work with you to figure out, how we can support your children. So thank you.
Thank you. So 4.5 is Assistant Superintendent's Update on Finance and Facilities, Mr. Ricky.
Hi, good evening. Just wanted to go over a few things, and then I think we've got our budget discussion that'll be following. I'll bring that up at the end of my update. Just like Vinny mentioned, we did have an Audit Committee meeting this afternoon, or this morning that went into this afternoon. We met with our internal auditor to talk about applying our updated agreed upon procedures and our annual risk assessment. They were both very productive meetings, and we will be bringing those reports and our recommended corrective action plans before the board and for your approval. And once that's approved, we have to submit those findings and our corrective action plans to the state and actually post these reports on our webpage, which we have with our past reports as well. So they were good though. We had good results on our purchasing and time and attendance. There's always recommendations, and we're always looking to do things in a better way. So I think they were good. And next year, with the risk assessment plan, the areas that we'll be looking at will be our benefits area and our technology. So again, two areas that are good, and the audit committee looked at those areas for next year for the internal audit function. With our capital construction, we sent out a nice update. I know I had that in my update letter. I hope the board had an opportunity to look at that. Triton Construction put it together for us. And actually, now that I think about it, we'll see if we can put that on our webpage, on the bond webpage, to show folks how nicely we're progressing at Hutchinson School. The concrete work, I keep saying it's finishing up. It's finishing up, and we're hearing they're going to be moving to steel probably in the June timeframe. So the coordination is moving nicely, and the project is moving along at a nice pace, fortunately. The work at the Glover complex is also moving along nicely. There's a lot of detail work that has to be done as part of that job. The stitching required with the lines, with the line work and everything else. We should probably see that finish up in the next few weeks though. And I think that finished product will be really wonderful, and it'll be a great product for the whole community once we're ready to break out of our houses and we're able to recreate publicly and together eventually. With the closure of the schools announced last week, there's also provided some opportunity for the district to move forward with the roof work on the annex and the masonry work on the high school for this summer. So Triton is working with our vendors to see if we can get that work started sooner. Again, that was originally slated to begin at the end of June, early July, and take place over the summer. But now with the schools closed at year end, once that paperwork is completed and we have the insurance forms together, we're going to give those vendors an opportunity to get in there early and see if they can get that work done earlier for us as well. And also the work on the interior renovations at the middle school, high school was supposed to start to begin really this week or the end of last week. But with everything that's been happening and being able to maintain social distancing and this being interior work, it looks like we're going to have to, we're looking to postpone that work towards next summer. And we'll be bringing change orders before the board for that variance on what that difference is to move that work towards next summer. So with that, we're going to talk a little bit about budget too, and one of our budget reductions will reflect some of those changes related to that work being postponed for another year. Our facilities folks are currently working on some smaller projects in district. Again, now that we know that the schools will not reopen for the rest of the year, we are, as a district, I know we're working on ways to make sure we're able to close out the school year, give everybody, find some way to get access and everybody to get their materials and supplies and close up their rooms and get their lockers. And we're working on that plan. But also our custodians, we want to get into the rooms and do our summer deep cleaning. So this gives us a little bit more time to be able to do that work. And we're putting a plan together so that we can start on that relatively shortly as well. As you look in the budget, on the agenda for tonight's meeting, there's a very generous donation, again, for $10,000 for the Larry Ryan Scholarship. And this is, he was a retired language teacher for the schools, and he recently passed away, unfortunately. We have a very generous donation, obviously a substantial amount of money there, and we wanted to make sure that the board was made aware of that, and can certainly give our proper gratitude to the folks making that donation. Last week also, we learned a lot more about our budget guidance and budget votes. So we have a new calendar that we're working forward to. Next week, we'll be asking the board to move forward with budget adoption. We have to have special meetings set up for the budget report card and the public hearings and then the public vote. And there's a long process that we have to go through. And I know our district clerk, Millie Bonilla, is doing that. So there's just, with all these new steps, we want to make sure we're staying on top of those items. It's all going to be done through the mail, basically like an absentee ballot process. So we're working with the district council to make sure we're following all the rules. We're having ballots printed. We're going to have to get mail permits to make sure everybody can mail their ballots back to us for the vote. So there's a lot of work involved in it. We started working on that very diligently this week. We had just found out Friday afternoon, and there's a very short window for turnaround, and we've got really good people working on that and making sure we're going to take care of that. So that's what I have for everything with my update. And then we also have just kind of our budget discussion, and I can share with you where we are with the budget, what the recommended adjustments would be to make to the budget in anticipation of the budget adoption next week, and then also kind of what's hanging out there and what also could happen during the school year that we want to be mindful of as we move forward.
Jim, can I ask a question? Actually, I wanted to make a clarification on something you said about the middle school, high school work.
Yes.
Being put off till next year. I think it's important that the public understand that this was a decision that was made because with the schools being closed, the ability of the school district to actually get that space ready to be renovated, a lot of moving of materials had to occur. We weren't sure we could get that done in time to get it completed this year. And when we posed that question to the contractors, they'd rather split it up between this year and next year, they were very clear that it would be much more cost effective to put the whole thing off till next year. And part of that was because they are having to deal with distance,
social distancing requirements.
Social distancing on the job site, which makes their work less productive. And so they would much prefer to do all of it next year rather than part of it this year and have to deal with the lack of productivity that's enforced on them by the social distancing requirements. So that was a discussion and a negotiation with the contractors to get the best job in the district and to make it more efficient for them and therefore less expensive for the district. So I just wanted to clarify that a little bit.
Thank you. And absolutely, you're exactly right as far as the social distancing and the timeline and working efficiently. And the recommendation is certainly based on doing what's in the financial best interest of the district with postponing it for that 1 year. And we're going to work with our construction manager and the architect to work with the vendors for that change order to bring that before the board at a future meeting. I don't know if anybody had any other questions or if they had any other comments regarding the items I talked about, and if not, I can move forward to some of our recommended budget modifications from the proposed budget. Okay. Since the superintendent proposed her budget back in, my gosh, it's back in February.
Feels like an eternity ago.
It does. It's a lot has happened since February.
Yes.
There have been changes, and of course, there's always changes to the budget from when it's first proposed to when it's finalized. I'd say a lot more has happened this year than in other years. Namely, though, what we've learned a lot more about is what the impact is to our state revenue this year, what we know as of now, and what could happen. And with that, we have some modifications to the preliminary budget to the final budget. And I just want to kind of share with you the financial amounts here and what our recommendations are looking like at this point in time. Our state aid is going to be flat year to year. So the difference from our preliminary budget to what our final budget is going to be, we're looking at about a $241,000 reduction in state aid from the superintendent's preliminary budget to the final budget that we'll be asking the board to adopt. This really results, it's about just under $250,000, $225,000 in our foundation aid, and smaller reduction in aid, a small reduction in building aid, and then we have a pandemic adjustment, which is kind of a reduction by the state and then an inflow of an equal amount from the federal government as part of the CARES legislation and restoration of dollars. But as a net sum, the reduction in our state funding is a reduction of $241,247. With that, and with everything that's been happening economically, there's three other categories that we're recommending making reductions in. One, and I've spoken about it before, is our sales taxes. We are certainly seeing a less economic activity and believe that the original proposed budget, where we believe we would bring in $1 million in sales tax, is not sustainable, and I'm recommending a 25% reduction in that to $750,000. We also have seen the interest rates decrease on what banks will pay their customers to hold their overnight deposits. We were in our original budget, we had the estimated interest income for the year at $90,000. We've reduced that to $30,000 for the year. So that's a $60,000 reduction. And then the third part is really just it's an expense or a revenue-based aid that's based on expenses that we've had for previous years, kind of like our BOCES program. It's our refunds in arts and education. That is based on revenue we receive for dollars we spend in the previous year. So this year in the spring, we would spend money on our arts and education program in the springtime for our schools for class trips. But unfortunately, those class trips can't happen this spring, because of our situation. As a result, we won't receive the latter revenue as a form of a reimbursement in the second year, which is what we normally get. And that's about a $95,000 downward adjustment in revenue next year. So when we look at our reduction in our state aid and those other three reductions that I mentioned, we're estimating a total reduction in revenue of $646,247 in aid. Now to do that, to look at those reduction in revenues, there's really two things you can do. You can either look to increase your revenue in other categories, which would be a non-tax revenue or tax revenue, or you can reduce your expenses. In this instance, we're recommending we find a reduction in our expenses. What we would be doing is we would be looking for reductions of an equal amount. We would be revising our contingency. As you recall, we carry a 2% contingency of our budget. And as we look to revise it, we're able to take off another $83,000 of our revised contingency to make up that $646,000 that we're looking to make up for. The original budget had proposed an expansion of a staff developer position, by half-time of 0.5 FTE position. We're recommending pulling that back, and that would produce a savings of $41,000. At a board meeting earlier in April, or maybe in March, I'm sorry, we extended the teacher retirement. There was a teacher retirement incentive for teachers who were able to provide 6 months notice. The board agreed to waive that 6-month prior notice requirement, and we had another teacher retire. What that was able to do is provide savings of $47,000 from the replacement cost of hiring a new teacher. We also are proposing continuing with use of an occupational therapist through a contractor rather than an employee. We had a recent canvass recently, which was not very successful. And we've also found that obviously it's more cost effective, and we had a very good quality of service, and we can save $31,000 that way. As Dr. Champ mentioned, through our scheduling, we can see some reduction in our overages and some savings of just over $35,000. And then we've had some personnel adjustments from people coming and going, and we've got a slight adjustment of $16,500 upwards of the adjustments that would go against that $646,000. We're also looking at, we took some items out of our budget for furniture purchases, some textbook purchases, and some work at Glover track for next year that we had in the budget. With schools being closed, we're going to do those advanced purchases this year, and we won't need them to have them in the budget for next year, but we'll still be able to get all of the work done and procure those supplies this year. As we mentioned earlier, we have the interior renovations at the middle school and high school is being postponed for a year. With that, we will certainly don't have a need to carry the rent expense if we were to rent office space for next year. So we can save that $200,000 there. And working with special education, we know that we have a student who we know now is graduating, so we can save $40,000. That it was a student who had additional needs. We also saw some savings in our workers' compensation insurance of $30,000. Our technology procurement for Xerox, we were able to save $20,000. And then for the IB fee at the high school, we're just transferring our funding source, and we're going to be paying that from our grant funded sources rather than from the general fund. So when we look up the sum of those items that I just mentioned, it totals $650,100. So we had a reduction in revenues of $646,000, and we've identified about just about $650,000 in expenses that we can reduce from the budget. So we feel we can bring forward a balanced operating budget to the board without having to recommend any increase in any taxes. As we looked towards the capital side of our budget, we know from Rick Yancey from Capital Market Advisors, who was at the last board meeting and updated the board with our spending plan. We know that we can expect to receive a little bit less in our premiums when we go out to borrow. However, we think with some use of our debt service funds, we would expect to be able to match, bring our expected tax increase year to year at the same level as the preliminary budget, and that was 3.15% on a year-to-year basis. And what that does is that also helps us preserve some of our debt service fund dollars for future years, because we're going to be going out for the bonding for the large borrowing in November for the Hutchinson School and for that $50 million. And we'll be expecting to see our debt service payments go up for that work in future years. And having those debt service dollars available will certainly be helpful. With what's happening throughout the economy, we know that the pain that we're seeing now is not going to end immediately, and we're certainly going to have to be able to have that as a lever for us if we need it moving forward. Now, with the budget, it is very interesting, though, because the governor has talked about revenue measurement periods, having 3 revenue measurement periods throughout the year. What this means is that if the state is not bringing in what they believe are sufficient revenues during the fiscal year, that once the fiscal year already starts, the budget director can make reductions to aid to the school district during the year. So that's something that we need to be mindful of, and we need to prepare for, and something we are preparing for as this school year moves on, and as we move into the next school. Well, as we move into the next school year, and the first measurement period has closed on April 30th. We'll expect the governor to share with us, or the budget director and the governor share with us any recommended changes to that budget probably at the end of next week. However, with the timing of the budget and absentee ballots and prior notifications, it really doesn't leave time in there for us to wait for that time period next Friday before bringing a recommended budget for adoption to the board. So we're really in a crunched time period here, and we want to still be, but we're still doing this in a way to be mindful of making sure that we've got the public vote, we're hitting all the time periods. There are going to be 3 revenue measurement periods that the governor is going to have, one in April, one over the summer, and the last one in December, where we can have reductions in that state aid. So we need to be flexible to additional reductions if they were to happen during the school year. And this all is being mindful of making sure that we can maintain the program and the services that the schools need to provide. I'm sorry, I can't see the rest of what we have. Yes. So I just want to make sure I mention those 3 things. This is our first time with the public vote too, all being done through absentee ballots. So there's a lot of new things that we're going to be going through in the next month with mailing all of these out and getting them back and checking and see what our responses are to our budgets as well. And again, with these, we think we can put together that budget to you and provide the services to our students for the upcoming year. That's what I have. I don't know if there's any other questions or if I missed anything, Dr. Champ, if there's anything to add there.
No, I think you hit all the high points, Jim. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And the low points.
Yeah, those are the honest truth. So,
yep.
Does anybody have any other questions or comments? Thank you. I don't know about the rest of the board, but I'm just feeling like at least we have a few more answers than we had each meeting. It's like we're flying. What did you use the analogy
yeah,
of flying?
building
a
a
It
plane.
feels a little
Oh
less
yeah,
foggy.
that's right.
Yeah.
So thank
right.
you.
Yeah, we're
Keeping us
driving in the
abreast.
fog and we're going slow.
Yes. So this brings us, I've lost track of where we are, to section 5. We have 1 policy up for 3rd reading. Eileen, can you review sexual harassment in the workplace? It's policy 6121.
Yes. There were, as we talked about the last time, there were 2 small changes to this policy as compared to what we currently had. The first was to alter the definition of sexual harassment and to make it more inclusive rather than the higher hurdle that previously existed. And the second was to extend the sorry, I don't have the words in front of me. The amount of time that people have to bring.
Statute of limitations.
Thank you. The statute of limitations on complaints of sexual harassment. So nothing has changed since the last reading, but that is changed from where we were before.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, so it's our third reading. So do I have a motion to approve 6121 sexual harassment in the workplace?
So moved.
Thanks, Sue. A second?
Second?
Thanks, Leah. Any more questions or comments? Forever hold your peace. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great.
Second.
We got a delay there.
That works too. Whatever.
The comedy of technology over this whole span of time, we're gonna have to write journals over this. Okay, section 6, financial reports and motions. I'd like to take a consent of 6.1 and 6.2. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Sue. A second?
Second.
Second.
Thanks, Eileen. Any questions or comments? All in
So
favor?
moved.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I think Vinny is on a 5-second delay.
I know. It's like watching the TVs in two different rooms where you find out the score in the living room crowd versus your kitchen. Okay.
Or What's Up, Tiger Lily, if you're a real Woody Allen fan.
Okay, item 6.3 is the motion to accept the donation that Jim referenced. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Thank
Second.
you, Leah and John. So this is, I'll read it out loud. Upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education in Pelham does hereby accept the monetary donation of $10,000 to support the Lawrence C. Ryan Scholarship Award Fund, and that gratitude be bestowed upon its donor, the John V. and Kathleen R. Murphy Fund. Again, this is a scholarship in honor of the Latin teacher who passed away just a couple months ago, and what a generous donation. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
John and Jess. I'm sorry. John and Jess. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
We're gonna take donations to have Vinny upgrade his wife.
Upgrade his wireless.
Too funny. Okay. This is the big moment for Mr. Fareed Johnson.
Fareed.
Yes. 7.1 is motion to approve Schedule A. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Second?
Thank you. I'll take Sue and Leah. Anything you want to add, Steve?
No, I mean, we just want to welcome Fareed. We also definitely want to, again, thank Susan Gilbert for all her time and years and dedication to the district. I know that, Fareed, you're inheriting a school which has, had really stable leadership, and it is really a great place to lead. And we really have thanked Susan for that. So congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm like I said earlier in the meeting, I'm very excited, very humbled, and very grateful for this opportunity. And I'm really looking forward to getting started. I've reached that point where, I'm over saying goodbye to my former district, and I'm just excited about this opportunity. I'm ready to get started and to be a leader in a district that, has such an emphasis on just being great and being there for people, building relationships. I'm very happy, and I'm very impressed with what I've seen thus far, and I know I will continue to be. And you will be too, I promise.
Great.
Very excited.
Very good.
Any
They're
questions?
not.
Sorry.
We don't have board meetings every week till 11 o'clock.
Just every other week.
We were really in the home stretch, until these added meetings.
I mean, we can go out, so you might as well hang out at a board.
There you go.
It is a nice
At least
social
this way you can wear your pajamas.
The next one I'll wear Superman pajamas. Not this one.
You can Maybe we should all wear our pajamas next time.
I don't know about that.
Bad
Well, it's
idea.
getting late.
There you go.
I like the idea of Pelham gear though. Maybe we'll do
Yeah.
all Pelham gear. Eileen,
I mean,
Leah's
can you
very
guys
good at
ship
that.
me some Pelham gear? I need some.
Oh, yes, there's some coming your way. Steve Luciana, our athletic director, he's going to
Can't
hook you
wait.
up.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? Oh, you have more to add, Steve?
No, not on this appointment, but maybe the others.
Okay. I'd just like to say welcome, Fareed. We welcome you into Pelham.
Thank you so much, Millie.
That was Tanya.
That's done.
I saw her. Sorry, Tanya. There you go.
Steve, this is all. Steve, this is
sorry,
all
Sue.
one motion. So if Steve, if you had
Yeah.
something else
Yeah,
to say, it's
just-
all in one.
Yeah, just
Thanks, Sue.
quickly. I mean, this is the hiring season, right? We've had many retirements this past year, so administrators have been doing a really good job continuing that process of recruitment and hiring. And here we have 3 positions: our new school counselor, a new math teacher at the high school, and also a new special education teacher at Prospect Hill. And we're all appointing them, recommend their appointments tonight. So in addition, the administrative team, the cabinet, interviewed 13 high school today, and we'll be looking forward to bringing some of the next round to the committee next week.
Very good. Any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention?
All
Congratulations.
right, no taking it back, Fareed.
You're
Congratulations.
stuck with us.
Happy to have you part of the team. Welcome to the Pelican Nation.
You'll
Wow.
never
Is that what it
forget
is?
this in the time of coronavirus.
I know. right?
All right.
Okay.
Okay, item 7.2 is motion to approve Schedule B.
Good night.
Night, Tanya. Thanks for coming.
All right.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Tanya. Bye-bye. Schedule B, do I have a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Thanks, Benny and John. Anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, just the coaching positions.
Okay, very good. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we're almost there, guys. 8.1, motion to approve Schedule D. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Leah. Thanks, Benny. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? 9 is new business. Do you have any new business? Seems like we covered a lot of territory. Okay, I'll check one more time. Item 10 is communications and comments from the public, which I do not have. So, Eileen,
Madam President, would you entertain a motion to adjourn?
I sure would. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Benny. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Good night.
Abstentions.
And bye.
All right. Have a good night.
Good night.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks
Good
so
night,
much,
everybody.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank
night.
you.
Stay safe.